Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for asking me.
Tell us about the play. How would you describe it?
Well, it's a melodrama. We have to call the pig by its name. It is a melodrama. And it's, Lillian Hellman wrote it in the 30s, but officially it's based around 1890. So not a great deal of time after the end of the American Civil War and also the abolition of slavery. So you have this family that, like many other families, have benefited from a huge source of income for a very, very long time and now are scrabbling to maintain power and resources by fair means or foul. And so it's very succession-y. It's about a family that clearly have had a lot of childhood trauma and their sibling rivalries and relationships are very complex. So you've got lots of characters who are hard to love, but weirdly not hard to root for at times. So,
What drew, how did it happen, you coming into this one? What drew you to it?
Well, I'd actually seen Marianne Elliott's production 20 years ago, maybe, at the Donmar. So I'd seen the play and not really remembered a great deal about it. And then during lockdown, so I did have a little weird journey with the play. The other director, Lindsay Posner, said he wanted to do a reading of Little Foxes to see if it would be possible to perform this play in the wake of the George Floyd scenario.
Right.
So we did a reading, and Maxine Peake read Regina and I read Birdie. And he did it as a sort of social experiment in a way. And then that happened, and then very recently, obviously, the Young Vic announced they were doing it, and I knew Lindsay was doing it. And we know each other, so I'd literally emailed her with no intention, saying, can't wait to see what you actually do with this play, because it is flammable. So I just, I'll be really interested to see what you and Kwame have cooked up. That was it. Then she emailed me back and said, well, do you want to do it? And it was like that. So I did have a weird little journey with the play. She's
Regina, who I think, you would say she is the kind of leading role in this, although it's a really great ensemble.
Yeah.
She's quite an unpleasant person in many ways, isn't she?
She is, and in the great tradition of thwarted anti-heroes.
Yeah.
So you have this sort of duality of being shocked and appalled by her and weirdly wanting the best for her at the same time. Richard III wouldn't work if we didn't want him to get up to his shenanigans. It's a very interesting, but also I think there are many things now that we as a 21st century audience would be more keyed into than even when it was first performed in the 30s. The notion of childhood trauma leading to terrible behaviour, the notion of gender politics is much more, we see the stranglehold on her as a woman and the judgment of her being ambitious or the judgment of her wanting to be fully realised as a businesswoman, because that's on a cellular level, that's inside of her. So we get that stuff. But she does behave very badly. I can't pretend.
No.
But,
How do you dig out the sympathy for that? How do you find yourself in that?
It's dead easy as an actor because you're always trying to find the whys and the wherefores, for anything that happens inside of a story, any action or plot development, you're always trying to work out all of the ingredients that make that cake. So actually, it's quite fun, It's very boring for an actor to play an action hero because we know what they're going to do and we know all their responses. Whereas characters who are more complicated and maybe have certain muscles that are overdeveloped, that shouldn't be overdeveloped in traumatised people, it's surprisingly a fun challenge.
It's interesting that what you say about us now being able to tap into the fact that she's clearly traumatised in some way. There's, this is a deeply dysfunctional family and has always been. But it still feels really subversive to have a woman behave that way, doesn't it?
We expect better from the fairer sex, don't we? We expect she's a terrible mother, for example.
Sure.
We expect, you know, we set very high expectations on women, and that's part of the story too. And it is a line that Mark Bonner's character Ben repeats. You know, you get much farther with a smile, Regina. He says to her, consistently tells her to be nicer. It'll do you much, you know. So, yeah, absolutely. And Hellman knew that. You know, Hellman was best mates with Dorothy Park. You know, she was around badly behaved women, whatever that means. So, yeah, it's. I'm glad in a way that audiences are still able to be shocked because we know we're not there yet. So it's good to just be reminded, you know, and it's so intriguing. You know, lots of people have talked about Succession and this play, but it's true that Shiv is the character who gets screwed over all the time. You know, so plus ça change, you know, sister.
You were saying a minute ago before we started that it's kind of getting more filmic as you go in every night. So tell me a bit about that. What do you mean?
Well, because we've set it in a kind of no time zone on purpose. That was Lindsay's goal because it is so profoundly relevant. And we were in rehearsals during the American election. So, you know, you'd have to be very... you just have to be sitting underwater not to be able to hear the references that feel so startlingly relevant to where we're at now. But yes, there's a sort of it's almost like it's staged in widescreen, and that's on purpose. So because you can play around with the Young Vic in terms of staging, which is great, you know, for each production, you can invent the space. So we have that panoramic sense, and we all try to inhabit both stage left and stage right as well as centre stage as much as we can. But there's something around the underscoring of it. There's a gentle underscore which happens quite often without the audience even being aware of it, which can punctuate certain moments and certain events. But also just Hellman's language, you know, belongs to a very specific time. And it feels very Mildred Piercy or very now Voyager-ish. It also celebrates that period of storytelling where on film women were allowed to behave badly. You had all these incredible actresses. And what happened? We got rid of them, you know. And female characters became servicing characters. So you lost your Bessie Davises and your Joan Crawfords and your Barbara Stanwicks and all of those extraordinary female performance. So it has a real taste of that, and you can really feel it. I think as we're becoming more and more fluid with the language and sort of celebrating that too, I think the rhythm and the syntax and everything feels very tasty, and there's some noir lighting, and it's great fun in that way.